So welcome to the Perthshire Music School then. This is a short lesson for somebody that's beginning on keyboard. And one of the questions we get asked a lot when somebody comes to the music school for the first time is all about the keyboard. What keyboard should they buy? How do you use this? What to look for and things like that. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to take you around the basic functions that you need for the keyboard and things that you should look for that it should have. And this keyboard here, although it's an older keyboard now, has all the basic functions you would look for in any keyboard. Okay then, so the first thing we'll do is switch on the keyboard. Switch on the keyboard first. And what happens is it automatically goes to what we call the default, which is a piano sound. So we're on the piano. Now first of all, let's deal with the voices on the keyboard. And this keyboard, you'll see you've got a 3-voice system. So you've got voice left, voice 1 and voice 2. It simply means on the left hand you could have a separate voice, and in the right hand you could twin voices up. So it gives you a lot of options. That not all keyboards have that, it just depends on what you're using. But for the basic thing, you would use voice R1. Now in this keyboard here, when I press R1, you'll notice the screen. If I press R2, the screen will change. Voice left, the screen will change. So it's essentially like a computer screen, but a smaller one. So back to voice R1. Now in most keyboards, what they'll have somewhere on the keyboard written up is a grouping of voices. If you see there, look, it's got voice, and 01 to 08 is piano. If we go down a bit further, 094 to 118 is strings. So if I make sure I'm on the voice, then here we've got a type, so I can press 094 and I've got the strings. So I've got a string voice now, and so on. You can go into that, you can use voices with it as well. Okay, so that's how you find a voice. Now, we then go to the next basic thing, which is the style. Now the style is to do with the drum beat. So if I just get a drum beat, so I press the style button, and you'll notice the screen has changed again. So if I'd say, right, okay, we're going to do a kind of country rhythm. Here's the styles here, and if we go to a kind of country beat, 092, so 092, press the start button here. We've got a drum beat. It doesn't sound much like a country beat now, but if we press here, if I stop that just now, press here, this is the accompaniment button. This is for the left hand. Okay. So the ACMP button, so that's activated. Now if I press that now, there, I've now got the left hand going. Now what's good about this keyboard as well, if you notice if I play that chord again, the chord that I'm playing comes up on the screen. So it's telling me I'm playing a C7 chord, there's a C major 7 chord, etc. So the keyboard works out what you're trying to do. Now, before you play a drum beat or before you do anything else, it's important that you connect up with the tempo. Let me just say it again. So this is the style, or the drum beat, or the drum pattern, or the accompaniment style. It's got to be connected to the tempo. So I press the tempo button, and now I've got it up here. Now it's got 148, which is quite fast. Now the best, this depends on the keyboard you're using. This keyboard's good because I can play the drum beat, and what I'll do is I can listen to the drum beat and adjust it to the tempo I think's right. Now, if I put this, what they call the sync start, I've got this accompaniment button on, the sync start button. Now what that means is as soon as I play a chord on the left hand, like this, it bursts into life. Okay, so there you are. So that's the sync start button. What's really good about this as well, and lots of the newer keyboards have got this now added. It has an intro button, so it's still in the country style. If I play it now, that gives a cool intro to the style. Obviously a different style, I'll give a different intro. Okay, what it also has as well, which is really good, an ending, so end it off. So there you are, so that's some of the basic things. Now, there's lots of other things in a keyboard, but that's the basic things. Let me just review what the basic things are. You need to be able to play the keyboard. Right. First of all, you need a voice system. Then the style list here, you need a tempo button. The accompaniment button needs to be on for the left hand chords and the sync start. And what they will all have is a good keyboard has variations on styles. So if I put that style on again, I start on variation A, and if I play the first rhythm, so I've got variation 1, variation 2, or A, B, then C, and then finally D. So there's 4 variations of the same drum pattern. Now, if you think of that now, for every drum beat you've got or every accompaniment style, you've got 4 variations on that you can use. That's really good. So I would say that would be, although you might not think that's an important thing, I think you would want, if you're getting a keyboard, you would want at least 2 variations for yourself for a beginner keyboard. Obviously more, but with 4 is obviously much better. It's much more interesting. A drummer very rarely will play the same drum beat the whole way through the whole song without changing it. So you want to be able to try and emulate that, what the drummer does, just a bit, so you've got that kind of change in that area. Now we'll just talk about the keyboard itself and what to buy. Right, so this question about which keyboard to buy comes up all the time from students and parents as well. Yeah, there's so much choice, it's really difficult to know what to do. When you go into a music shop, it's the same with guitars as well. You look at a guitar, one guitar looks much the same as another. One would be £50, one could be £500. What's the difference between them? It's the same with keyboards. In any musical instrument, you'll get something at £100, then you've got something at £500. What's the difference? Well, the difference is functionality and playability. Right? With the electronic keyboard, the main thing is functionality. What makes an electronic keyboard, an interesting instrument and has a large appeal is because all the different things you can do with it. So obviously, the more functions it's got in it, the better. Obviously, the playability is to do with the keys, and the keys are fairly straightforward. So it's got a very, very light touch, the keyboard. If you want a more expensive keyboard, you would go for weighted keys that are more of a kind of piano style. You would probably use that if you were more a piano player, to get that kind of piano type feel. They're weighted, so they feel like playing the piano. But generally speaking, on the normal keyboard, they're a very, very light touch. Alright then, so what to buy? Well, as we just mentioned, you would look for these basic things first. You should have a voice, style, an accompaniment button, sync start, and a couple of variations on a drum beat. That's the most basic thing. How much to spend? Yeah, to be honest, that's a difficult question. It's like asking how long's a piece of string. I think the most important thing to do, perhaps if you're a parent watching this, is to think of the budget you want to spend on it. Say for example, if we speak in British pounds, if you started at say 100, £150, then you would look for keyboards that you could get within that area, and look for something that you could usually get something new at that. Sometimes you can get something a bit better second hand, and you can do that as well. Clearly, the more you spend, the better the instrument you're going to get. If it's a beginner and if you're buying a keyboard for a child, parents quite often don't want to spend a lot of money because they don't know if they're going to actually stick at it, which I'm a parent myself, I know exactly what that's like. So you would probably just go for the basic thing, or a second-hand keyboard to start with. A couple of tips on that when you're looking at any kind of musical instrument. I always feel that if you're going to buy an instrument, it's really important to play it. Now, okay, so you might not be able to play it, but it's a very personal thing, a musical instrument. You know, it's good to take the student along and let them have a feel of it, look at it. You know, and now, if it's a younger child, if it's a young person going for it, they'll probably want the most expensive one, but not necessarily. You'll probably find that they'll see something that they like. So, for example, if I was going to pick any instrument, I don't think I've ever done that actually on the internet. It's, you know, because I like to get the instrument in my hands, play it, see how it feels. If I'm comfortable with it, I like it, I'll go away, think about it, see if I've got the money to buy it, and then usually what I do is if I really want an instrument, I'll go back and buy it. So the key thing here is probably just to stick to your budget that you've got in mind, and try not to go too much over it, and get the keyboard that you want. With regards to second-hand instruments, well, second-hand instruments are the same as anything that you buy second-hand. There's usually a bit of risk involved, you know, especially with the electronic ones. You know, and like for example, one student came once with a keyboard that wasn't working right, and what had happened is that somebody had spilt Coca-Cola on the keys, and the Coca-Cola went underneath all the keys, and some of the keys weren't working properly. And you know, there wasn't really a lot that actually could be done about it. The whole thing would have to be taken apart, and it was going to be too expensive to replace the bits, you know, compared to what the keyboard was actually cost. So the parent went and got another keyboard, and that money that they got for that second one, which seemed like a bargain, ended up not being a bargain. So you just got to be a bit more careful when you go second hand. And it's an important thing to play the notes on the keyboard. Like for example, just and play a few keys. If you can't play any scales, play a few keys, see if it's playing. See if the voice has changed, check this, see if the accompaniment button's working, check if the style's working in the keyboard, play it, see if everything's working. If the student can play a bit, let him try something on it, see how he feels about it. So there you are. That advice is generally good if it doesn't matter what instrument you're looking for. I reckon it's always a good idea to have a go at it first, because it does become very personal to you. You've got to be using it a lot, so you've got to get something you want. A good tip not to do is sometimes parents have had lessons years and years ago, especially with guitars. If I can do that with guitars, there's a guitar been up, it's granddad's guitar, it's up in the loft, and it's been there for about 30 years. What you'll usually find is that it's usually in bad condition, too big for the student. Sometimes the strings are even rusted, the fret wires on the actual guitar are a wee bit pitted because they've been up there and it's been damp. And essentially, because the guitar hasn't been in a box or in its case, the guitar is actually done. So you're better to get the beginner student a nice new guitar. You can get them for about, you can get a nice guitar for about £50, £70 in British pounds. No problem, that'll be fine. You get these in any music shop in any town that you're in. So there you are. So there's one or two tips, and especially on the keyboard today, or just looking for an instrument to buy.